All right, everyone, before we get started, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Okay, so today we're talking about the Minnesota Vikings and their quarterback situation. It's going to be a tough choice for the front office.
Yeah, it really is. They've got to decide whether to stick with Sam Darnold or give J.J. McCarthy a chance.
And then you've got Justin Jefferson, seemingly pretty relaxed about the whole thing.
Yeah, it is interesting how Darnold's performance last year really makes things complicated. I mean, he almost single-handedly took the Vikings to a top seed.
He exceeded a lot of people's expectations, that's for sure.
But then at the end of the season, you saw some of his old habits come back. And that was especially true during some of the most important games.
And now he's headed into free agency.
Exactly, which leaves the Vikings with a big decision. Do they try to keep him or let him go?
So they're really weighing their options here. The Vikings have to figure out if they want to go with the experience of Darnold or take a risk on a younger quarterback.
Darnold has proven that he can lead a team, but the question is, can he get over those late season problems and perform when it matters most?
And then you've got McCarthy waiting for his shot.
Right, a first-round draft pick who unfortunately had to sit out last season because of an injury. So we haven't really seen what he can do in the regular season.
We saw flashes of potential in the preseason, but is that enough to build a franchise around?
It's a gamble for sure.
Right.
You've got the chance to start fresh with McCarthy, but you never know what you're going to get with a quarterback who hasn't really been tested.
And then there's the financial side of things, too. What happens if they let Darnold walk? Are they prepared to lose all that experience if they're not totally convinced about McCarthy?
That's a tough one.
And it's interesting how Justin Jefferson just seems totally unfazed by all of this. You'd think a star wide receiver like him would be a little more concerned about who's throwing him the ball.
Yeah, but remember, Jefferson has been through this before. Back in 2023, he played with 4 different quarterbacks, missed games because of an injury, and still managed to get over 1,000 receiving yards.
It's incredible how consistent he is. It just goes to show how talented and dedicated he is.
Absolutely. He's the kind of player any team would want. Someone who stays focused and confident no matter who's playing quarterback.
That confidence probably comes from hitting the 1,000-yard mark in each of his first 5 seasons in the league. That's impressive when you consider all the quarterback changes he's had to deal with.
It makes you wonder, though, does Jefferson's confidence give the Vikings more flexibility in their decision? Could they feel better about taking a chance on McCarthy, knowing they have such a reliable weapon in Jefferson?
It definitely adds another layer to the situation.
Yeah.
I think having a receiver like Jefferson who can perform no matter who's throwing to him might make it easier to let go of Darnold.
Right, because his consistency basically gives them a safety net so they can focus on other things like McCarthy's potential and how much Darnold's contract is going to cost.
So here's the situation. You've got a veteran quarterback trying to hold on to his spot, a young prospect eager to prove himself, and a star receiver who's ready to dominate regardless of who's throwing the ball.
There are a lot of moving pieces here, and it's all going to impact their free agency strategy and how they build the team in general.
The Vikings are at a critical point, and the decision they make at quarterback is going to shape the entire future of the franchise.
And with the free agency deadline coming up, they need to make that decision soon. Let's start by breaking down the pros and cons of each quarterback. That way we can really understand the dilemma the Vikings are facing.
Okay, so with Darnold, the biggest plus is his experience. He's been in the league for a while, he's played against a variety of defenses, and he knows how to win in this league.
And we saw that experience come into play last season when he almost took the Vikings to the top. He had some really impressive moments and showed that he could be a strong leader.
But then there were those late season struggles that we can't just ignore. When Maresha was on, he seemed to fall back into old habits, which makes you question his consistency and his decision-making skills when the stakes are high.
Right, and let's not forget about the financial aspect. He's going into free agency, and it's very likely he's going to want a big contract.
Yeah, the Vikings will need to carefully weigh his potential against how much it's going to cost to keep him around for the long term.
Now let's talk about J.J. McCarthy. He's got all that potential, and his physical skills and arm strength are undeniable. You can see that he has the tools to be a very successful quarterback in this league.
We saw that in the preseason. He showed that he could move around and make plays outside of the pocket.
The problem is that he hasn't played a single snap in the regular season, so we really don't know how he'll handle the pressure.
And after coming off a season-ending injury, there are concerns about how durable he is and how long it's going to take him to get back to 100%.
For sure. The Vikings have got to figure out how his recovery is going and if he's really ready to be the starting quarterback.
It's the classic dilemma, experience versus potential, the known versus the unknown.
It's a complicated decision with serious implications for the Vikings' future.
They have a tough choice to make, and they need to make it soon.
It's going to be really interesting to see which way they go and how it affects their roster and their overall strategy. This whole quarterback situation is just one part of a bigger puzzle for the Vikings as they head into the offseason.
Exactly. They've got other holes to fill and decisions to make about free agency and the draft.
But there's no doubt that the quarterback position is the most important one. The choice they make there is going to set the tone for the whole offseason.
And it's worth noting that Justin Jefferson has said he's confident in either quarterback quarterback. So that gives the Vikings a little bit of flexibility in their decision-making.
It's pretty rare to have a star receiver who's not worried about who's throwing him the ball. It really says a lot about Jefferson's talent and his mindset.
And it means that the Vikings can look at other things when they're evaluating their quarterback options. It's a tricky situation with no easy answers, but the Vikings need to be smart and strategic about how they handle this.
As fans, all we can do is sit back and watch how things play out. This quarterback situation is shaping up to be a very interesting offseason for the Minnesota Vikings.
It sounds like Jefferson's confidence might actually be a sign that he believes in the entire Vikings system.
You know what? That's an interesting point. Maybe this isn't just about who the quarterback is. Maybe it's about the supporting cast, the coaches, and the whole team culture. It's almost like he's saying, hey, I trust this whole team.
Yeah, it's not just about one position. It's about everyone working together.
If Jefferson has that much faith in the system, it really shows that the Vikings have something special going on.
They've created a culture where players feel supported and they know they can succeed.
And that's huge when you're trying to attract free agents and draft picks.
It's like a snowball effect. The more the players believe in the system, the more other talented players want to be a part of it.
Exactly. And that leads to more success.
So even though the quarterback situation is a big deal, we shouldn't forget about all the other factors that contribute to the Vikings' success.
They've got a solid core group of players. The coaches are doing a great job, and the overall culture is strong.
And with a guy like Justin Jefferson on their side, they have the potential to be a top team in the league, regardless of who's playing quarterback.
It's going to be an exciting offseason, that's for sure.
So now that we've talked about the quarterbacks, let's shift gears a little bit and imagine some scenarios that could play out depending on who the Vikings decide to go with.
Okay, so let's say they stick with Darnold. That means they've got to figure out a new contract for him.
A contract that reflects his value and potential.
Right. And they also need to find a way to help him avoid those late season collapses. Maybe some coaching adjustments or even some changes to the roster.
Now, what if they decide to give McCarthy a chance?
Then they need to make sure he has the support he needs to develop and grow as a quarterback.
They could bring in a veteran backup to mentor him, or maybe invest in some offensive weapons to give him more options.
But there's always that third option, too.
Yeah, they could explore trading for a quarterback or signing a free agent who they weren't initially considering.
The Vikings have a lot of different routes they could take, and I'm really curious to see what they decide to do.
This whole quarterback situation has been a hot topic for Vikings fans and the entire NFL.
It's a decision that's going to have an impact on the whole league.
It just goes to show you that sometimes the toughest decisions are the ones that have the biggest potential payoff.
As we wait to see what the Vikings do, let's not forget about all the other players who are crucial to their success.
The offensive line, the running backs, the defense, they all play a big role.
And with Justin Jefferson leading the way, the Vikings have what it takes to be a real force in the NFC.
The Vikings are definitely on the rise, and this quarterback decision is a defining moment for them.
It's a decision that's going to shape their identity and set their course for the future.
And as fans, we get to be a part of this exciting journey and see how it all unfolds.
The NFL offseason is always a time of hope and anticipation. There are so many possibilities.
And for the Vikings, this offseason is full of big decisions and exciting new chapters.
So cheers to the Vikings and the journey that lies ahead.
Here's to the purple and gold and their quest for glory.
This quarterback situation is just one chapter in the Vikings story.
And as we turn the page, I think we're all excited to see what happens next.
The Vikings have a rich history and a bright future.
And this decision at quarterback is going to be a key moment in their pursuit of a championship.
It's a decision that will affect their roster, their strategy, their legacy.
But no matter who they choose, one thing is for sure.
The Minnesota Vikings are a team to keep an eye on.
Their journey towards a championship is going to be captivating.
So before we wrap up, let's take a minute to acknowledge just how complex this quarterback situation really is.
It's not just about looking at stats and awards.
It's about finding the right fit for the team, the offensive system, the culture.
It's about deciding what's more important, experience or potential taking a risk or playing it safe.
And ultimately, it's about making a choice that will impact the future of the franchise.
The Vikings are at a crossroads right now, and their decision is going to have a huge impact.
But with a talented roster, a supportive coaching staff, and passionate fans,
The Vikings are in a good position to achieve great things.
no matter who ends up being their quarterback.
They've got a bright future ahead of them.
And we can't wait to see what happens next.
As we wrap up this discussion, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
What does Justin Jefferson's confidence tell us about the Vikings as an organization?
That's a good question.
Is it a sign of a strong culture, a belief in their system, or maybe both?
We've spent a lot of time talking about the quarterback situation and all the different possibilities.
But I think what's really interesting is the human side of all this.
The confidence of a star player, the pressure of making a big decision, the hopes and dreams of the entire franchise.
It reminds us that there's so much more to this than just stats and headlines. There are real people involved with real emotions.
And as we wrap up our look at the Vikings quarterback situation, I have to say I'm really impressed impressed with everyone involved. The players, the coaches, the fans.
They all make this sport so captivating.
It's a sport full of surprises and challenges and incredible moments.
And we can't wait to see what the next chapter holds for the Minnesota Vikings.
It's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Vikings quarterback situation.
We'll be back soon with more analysis and insights.
Until then, keep those conversations going and let us know what you think the Vikings should do.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
See you next time.